Arun and Tim, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the Commanders and also about the Baltimore game as well. So let me, I'm going to put the graphic back to, I think it was Siege. What was it? I'm just going to do it manually. Yeah.
I will say I am so glad I recorded that game since I slept a lot yesterday. I'm so glad I recorded because I watched it from beginning to end, and I was just like, even though I knew what was going to happen, I was still like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah,
that's how good it was. I was still on the edge of my seat, even though I knew what the result was going to be. It's just still great to just watch it unfold in front of me and just see just how tough this team, because it's crazy. As long as I've been a Commanders fan, even when they had the old name, one of the things I've always known is, like, especially late in games, they tend to fall apart and just, pack up the tent and be like, okay, we'll go to the next week. But this team did not do that. They not only kept the tent up, but they fortified that tent in order to like stick their heels in and say, we're not done with this fight yet. We're going to keep this fight going until we can't go anymore, which I really admired about this team. And being able to take the team that was in the Super Bowl last year and take them to overtime in their home, where it was rowdy in there. They took them to their limit, took them all the way to overtime, only to lose on who's Jake Elliott's arguably going to be the next kicker that'll make the Hall of Fame. If there isn't one or two others ahead of him, he's definitely a Hall of Fame bound kicker. That's how good he is. And you can't be mad at the effort. You can't be mad at the result. It's just, it was great. It was great. I loved it so much.
Yeah, well, we got Arun joining us now. I definitely want to get his take on this game as well. Arun, how are you doing tonight?
Not bad. Considering, I don't know, it was like kind of a tough loss, but as Ken alluded to, they played a lot better. Like, considering that they gave up the lead, they were able to fight back, get the game to overtime, closing out the game. And that Terry McLaurin play, I guess, 1 foot or a little toe out of bounds, or maybe some fans said it should be good. I think that ultimately kept the drive from going on, and then I think the defense came up with somewhat of a stand. At least they held them to a 52-yard field goal, but the Eagles kicker is great, and it is what it is. And Washington won the coin toss, couldn't get the win. All the fans in Philadelphia were nervous, but they just couldn't put it away.
Yeah, I'm watching a replay at the halftime. They're showing what it was like to watch the Disney version of the London game that happened. Or if people don't know the story behind this, they actually had virtually impose like the same plays that were happening. They did this in the playoffs last year with Nickelodeon and one of their properties, but this one was Toy Story, so it was like Buzz Lightyear versus Woody, live. They're in those uniforms and it's like cartoon style, which I thought was kind of interesting. I think it was also airing on the Disney Channel. I didn't get a chance to watch it because actually it was during Zara's birthday. Happy birthday to her. She just turned 2. So I wasn't watching that, but it did seem like a really interesting thing for sure. Arun, were you able to check that out at all?
Yeah, I don't have ESPN Plus, but I have Disney Plus, so I watched probably more than I should have of that game on the Toy Story channel. And I was like, oh, this is it was entertaining at first. I'm like, and I showed it like people in my house, but then after a while I was like, I don't think this is for me anymore, but I still just kept watching.
It's kind of like Madden, because it's just, but like with live action inputs, for
and then like they're just like, there's Woody on the sideline, and then like, and there's I forget, like the dog or with the Slinky dog, and
yeah, that's hilarious. I love
like
that.
My nephew and niece would have been entertained, but they weren't around, so it was unfortunate that they couldn't watch it.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy that one of us watched it though and could give insight on it. I think the concept was cool, and I definitely, if I didn't have the birthday party exactly at that moment, I would have probably showed it to Zara because I think she probably would have thought it was really cool, and Zach probably would have thought it cool too because he's super into football. So I like the concept though, football for kids, and I definitely hope that they continue it. I heard that people definitely tuned in, so I definitely think that they might continue it. It was definitely interesting. Champ, had you heard anything about that before?
No, I didn't. Actually, I don't have a lot of these subscription services where I can get all the fancy dancy stuff and everything like that. I just watch football the way I've watched football since I was a kid. Like I just see stats, I see this and I see that, all that extra stuff. I don't know, it is what it is. I mean, it sounds cool, but I'm not going to seek it out. Honestly, I just watch football the way I watch football. I've always watched football.
Yeah, for sure. Arun, have you watched any of this first half of the Monday Night Football game?
I saw the controversial touchdown, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Kind of walked there. They thought he was down, and he was just like standing upright, and then he ran all the way in.
Right. Well, then later they had the actual touchdown and then a brawl afterwards. So it was so they called it back and then they did that. So that was interesting. I don't know what's going on with Tim. He was supposed to call in, but I wonder if he may have fallen asleep on the couch. So I am we're gonna switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the other games that happened this past week, and then we can bring him in at the end. So I'm gonna get each one of you. I'm gonna go grab a water real fast because mine is out. But Arun, talk a little bit about some of your favorite games, maybe of the week, or any of the games that you found interesting, and then I'll be right back.
Sure. I guess the I'm just trying to think which is the game I found interesting. I guess the Steelers versus the Texans I found interesting because I thought the Steelers were going to beat Houston. Houston had an impressive win against Baltimore, but I thought Pittsburgh was going to kind of lock them in, especially against a rookie quarterback. But CJ Stroud came out strong with a really good effort, and they kind of just dismantled Pittsburgh in the first half, and it wasn't really close after that. And I also saw Christian McCaffrey had a huge game for the 49ers, and he put up like 44 fantasy points in fantasy football. It's kind of crazy. And the Cowboys, I guess they put it together too. Like after a bad loss to the Cardinals, they just destroyed the Patriots, and the Patriots look like the worst team in the AFC East. What about you? What do you think was the most interesting game?
Two games stood out to me. One was the fact that Miami last week put up a 70 bomb and absolutely dominated. Then they turned around and went to Buffalo and got dominated. Big turnaround from giving up 70 points, from putting up 70 to giving up 48 and only scoring 20. A 50-point differential from week to week for Miami. That's got to be jarring to that fan base to go from like having just a dominant performance one week to getting dominated by your division rival the very next week. Buffalo looked really good on that one. I think the other one that stood out is the opponent for the Commanders this week in Chicago, who had a lead on Denver. Like they had that game in the bag. Justin Fields had one of his best games of the season in this game, but yet they could not sustain it and ended up losing by 3 points to Denver. And I think that that's why a lot of people a lot of people within the Commanders fan base are basically saying, "Oh, we got this game in the bag," because they couldn't even beat Denver. They let Denver come back on them, and it's like, no, don't do that, because this is a classic trap game, as we mentioned early on in the first hour. This is a classic trap game against Chicago, especially coming off the losses they just suffered. They're going to be coming in with all type of things to prove, and all type of ways they want to get that win back and everything like that. Also, I just want to put out there that I'm still leading in Hurts Pick'em. By the way, I just want to put that out there. I'm killing it right now.
I was about to talk about that. I am unfortunately fallen all the way to 6th place, but that just means I lost one more game than everybody else. So that's tough because I'm like, it's so close, right? Right now you are beating me. You've got 420 points, which is nice. You have Seattle, I assume, in this game.
Let me see. If I do that, I might be still in the lead. Let me see. I do have Seattle in this game.
All right, there you go. I also think that I picked Seattle in mine as well. And so you're doing awesome. I wanted to go over the top picks right now in the groups. So right now, Champ is leading the pack with 420, soon to be 430 if this goes the right way. Sith is right on your heels, so it's cool that your co-host is right there at 410. Not Bland, Dujunnea himself, 410. Tommy Dykes, my father-in-law, 410. And Hurt has 410, and I'm right there at 400. So it's a very close, little set right there at the top of the league. And then a bunch of there's another person tied with me for 400, and then Arun, I believe you have 350. So but it's all very close at the top. It's going to be interesting to see. There's been a ton of upsets that have been surprising to me, for sure. I just want to go over a couple of them this week. I was trying to give Tim a little bit more time. I don't think he's going to be joining us. I think he may have fallen asleep on the couch, which is totally fine. I'll talk about the Ravens, because I watched the whole game with him if he's not on in a second. But Detroit Lions beat the Green Bay Packers, and they've looked really good this season for the most part. They beat them 34-20. Jaguars beat the Falcons in that international game that was, again, the Toy Story game. Dolphins lost to the Buffalo Bills. Looking back on it, that makes a lot of sense, but Dolphins have looked good the last couple of weeks. So I had picked them. 57% of people had agreed with me. I picked the Broncos. I was happy to see that they came back in that one. I was a little nervous for a little while. The Bengals, I thought, were going to have a comeback win, and 88% of people thought that was going to be true too. But the Titans played a really good game. They won that 27-3. The Ravens kind of decimated the Browns 28-3. I thought that game was going to be a lot closer, especially in Cleveland, and I'll talk a little bit more about that game in a second. The Rams beat the Colts 29-23. That went about the way I expected. I thought the Saints were actually going to beat the Buccaneers because it was in New Orleans, and they were 2-1 going into that game. 67% of people also thought that, but Tampa Bay looked really good in that game, beating them again 26-9. The Eagles beat the Commanders, as we talked about, 34-31 on a game-winning 54-yard field goal. The Vikings beat the Panthers in what I call the loser bowl. Both were 0-3. I actually thought the Vikings were going to lose this game for a time, but they were able to come back and win it. 92% of people did think that they were going to beat Carolina. They beat them 21-13. I thought Pittsburgh Steelers were going to play their game a lot better against the Houston Texans, but they kind of got trounced 30-6 in that one. The Raiders lost to the Chargers, which I also thought was going to be true. I thought the Cowboys would beat the Patriots. I did not necessarily think it was going to be 38-3, but I thought it'd be a little closer. It was not. I expected the 49ers to beat the Cardinals. They ended up winning 35-16. The Chiefs-Jets game was a lot closer than I expected. 98% of people picked the Chiefs, but they only escaped with a 3-point victory. And I didn't watch the game, but I heard a lot of the coverage was about Taylor Swift, which is very polarizing. Some people are like getting into the NFL because of her. Some people are so mad that she's brought up so much. That was kind of a game where a lot of people were talking about the people who were not on the field, more than the people that were on the field. And then we got the Seahawks Giants game right now. It's 14-3 with 12-12 left in the third quarter. I know you guys talked about some of the games. Is there any more games that you would like to talk about before I talk about the Baltimore game, or should I just get into it? I'll start off with you, Champ.
I just have to put this question out there again, because I know I put it out there in our group chat, but I got to ask this to Arun and get his thoughts on this. Is the Cowboys defense that good, or are the Patriots that bad? I just want to know.
That bad. Mac Jones is that bad, and they're running. They were talking up Zeke Elliott before this game that he's going to get starters reps, and he's terrible in this Cowboys game. And the Patriots, they didn't look good against the Dolphins. Their defense held up against the Dolphins, but their offense just looked mediocre, and that's the Dolphins missing a lot of field goals. There was a Patriots, I think Bill Simmons thought that this would be a close game, and the Patriots just got destroyed in like the first two quarters. If you only scored 3 points and you give up 28, there was no way that they were going to come back. And they let Jacoby Myers go this offseason, and he's doing a relatively good job with the Raiders. They missed Tom Brady. They probably should have kept giving him his payday or whatever. He wanted, let him hire some meditation counselors. They haven't been the same team since he's left.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think the Patriots are very good, but I still don't think that Dallas is as good as a couple of lopsided victories personally, but we'll see when they start playing some better teams. I did want to mention some of the Eagles fans' thoughts. One of my cousins, Eric, who was a groomsman of mine, thought that the Eagles didn't deserve that win as much as the stats say. He felt Hurts was struggling to find rhythm, even though his stats were good. He seemed like he was not as confident as he was last season. Neither team really got the run game going, which is not like them. The officiating was not great in the game on both sides, and the NFC East teams can truly turn out some competitive games. Shows it doesn't matter what the team's record is, the game can still be a burner. So I thought that was all really interesting facts. Thank you, Eric, for submitting those thoughts on the record. I'm gonna change the logo really quickly and put on the Ravens logo. I really love this Ravens game. I thought that they played a really awesome game. I never really felt like the Browns were in it. It was a lot of fun to watch this game with Tim. We had them live here in the Man Cave. I had both this game on and the Commanders game. I was happy that one of the games went our way. Obviously the Commanders game was a nail biter, and give Tim credit. He was helping root us on as well. But I really was impressed by the Ravens, and it was a game that they had to win because I think that they've got a lot of potential, building on that team. I'll start with you, Arun. What are some of your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson not being able to go, I think that really kind of shifted the narrative. Like, everyone was talking about the Browns defense, like, coming into this game. But I feel like people are either really talking up the Browns a lot or just dismissing them completely. I think they're like somewhere in between. Like, when they got destroyed by Pittsburgh, Deshaun Watson was like the worst quarterback in the league, and then the next week they're back on top of the world. And it felt like the Ravens, they had something to prove after the Texans loss, and I guess the Texans are better than even I thought they were, because they just beat Pittsburgh. So sorry about that. Yeah, I think really impressive by the Ravens to just put forth a much better effort after a bad loss last week, and the Texans they actually might be a good team anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Champ, I know that you were not feeling well, but did you watch any of the highlights of that game?
I did see some highlights of it. It looks like Lamar Jackson's really, really, really trying to, show that he earned that contract that he managed to negotiate for himself and things like that. And I mean, the first couple of weeks, it looked like it was going to be a bit of a struggle for him, but this game, it looked like he was starting to look like a little bit of his old self here. And so I think that he's starting to turn the corner, and he's starting to like really understand his role, being that he is this franchise's quarterback. He's the guy, like he's their guy, and he needs to go out there and play like that. And he did against a team like Cleveland, who, nothing against Cleveland, but they're not exactly a world-beating team, honestly. So clearly they needed, they needed this win here, especially against a division foe like Cleveland, and to be able to establish themselves and say, hey, we're still here now. And granted, they did this without even having Odell Beckham in the lineup. Odell Beckham was a scratch due to an ankle injury, and he's still listed as questionable for their next games. I should know because I have him on one of my fantasy teams. But I think that if you could get Odell healthy out there, I think that poses another great threat for this offense to have in their back pocket is someone like an Odell Beckham Jr. who can open up the field and really create some mismatches with his skill set.
For sure. I do want to point out one other quick stat. Lamar Jackson was a part of all 4 of the touchdowns. He had 2 of them passing. It was 15 for 19, a very impressive 78% right there. And not for a ton of yards, for 186, but a QB rating of 142. He also only had 9 rushes, but was able to score on 2 of them. He did have 2 fumbles and 1 lost one, but the fact that he was able to have 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns on the same day was very impressive. And I just saw a really good all-around game for him. So just a great game for the Ravens. They do have an interesting game coming up here against their arch rivals, Pittsburgh. That'll be a 1:00 game in Pittsburgh. It'll be interesting. Right now, Baltimore is favored in that one, but it's always tough to go to Pittsburgh for sure. I do want to talk about a couple other DMV sports just real fast. I'm going to switch to the MLB real quickly, and see if this one goes. Let's see, NFL2. All right, got a lot of different commands. I do want to say the Nationals did end their season. It was kind of a bit of a whimper to a season overall. But I did want to just break down how they ended it. They were able to beat Atlanta in that last game, which is always nice, just because I don't like Atlanta. But they split that series where they won 2 and lost 1. They lost both games to Baltimore, which I was really happy about because Baltimore needed those wins. Baltimore themselves found themselves at 100 wins, and I believe 3 out of the last 4 times they've had 100 wins in the season. They were actually able to win it all those years. So let me put up my Orioles graphic here. Congratulations to the Baltimore Orioles, the AL East champions, and we will be covering them on this run here. It's still to be determined who they will play in the postseason. I'm going to pull up real quickly a graphic of the current MLB postseason that's coming up here. So the wild card game between the Rangers and the Rays is tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then there's a wild card game at 4:38 between the Blue Jays and the Twins. And there's also a wild card game between the Diamondbacks and the Brewers, and a wild card game between the Marlins and the Phillies. So the 7:05 is the Diamondbacks Brewers, and the 8:08 is the Marlins and the Phillies. So it's an interesting setup where now there are 4 wild card games, and they'll play all the way through Thursday, and then the division series will start on Saturday. And the teams that are awaiting the results of these are the Astros, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Orioles. So I kind of like this new format. It's a little bit more exciting. I'm excited that the Orioles will get a little bit of time off to hopefully heal some injuries. Be interesting to see who they end up playing. I'll ask Arun, are you in on the Orioles? Are you going to watch this year's baseball playoffs? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to watch the Orioles. Unfortunately, they're not on YouTube TV, so I haven't really been able to watch the Orioles or the Nationals that much this year. So
I am in the exact same boat. So I feel you 100% because I also now have YouTube TV. But I'm excited that it's no longer the case.
Yeah, and I think the Orioles have won 18 more games than last year, so they're definitely they 101 wins. That feels like a lucky number, so maybe they can make some noise against the Blue Jays. But it's always interesting when the playoffs go, whether their starting pitching holds up. They did manage to get 101 wins, so maybe they'll make a deep run.
Yeah, I do want to point out the stat. They are the first team to have 110 losses or 110 or more losses one season, and then 2 seasons later have 100 wins. So it's one of the bigger rebound stories in baseball history. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Champ, do you have any thoughts on baseball playoffs at all?
I will say, I will be secretly rooting for the Orioles. I mean, I am one of those that before Montreal came to DC, I was an Orioles fan because it was the only team that was local to DC. I remember, I have a fond memory when I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I stayed up to watch when Cal Ripken Jr. broke the consecutive game streak and how historic and how great that was. So it's great to see this franchise be back in the playoffs after being such a state of mediocrity for so many years. And now they're in the playoffs as one of the top AL teams. I'm hoping that they make a very deep run in the postseason. Hell, I even hope that they even win the whole damn thing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see how they do in this playoffs after being out of the playoffs for so long. Now they got to go into a situation where they're playing fall baseball. Let's see how they handle it after not being able to do it for so many years and see what happens. But I'm secretly rooting for the Orioles to make a very deep run in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also grew up rooting for the Orioles. I'm sure that Arun probably did too.
Yeah, I went to the Yankees-Orioles playoff games back in the 90s.
Yeah, I never
By
went
the
to a
way, that
playoff
fan
game,
did
but
interfere in that catch. By the way, I'm not letting that go. God damn it, he
Yeah,
interfered.
It's
Jeremy
true.
Mayer did it.
My mom has a T-shirt from that era, like Derek Jeter's a cheater or something.
Nice.
I wonder how old that kid is now, because that was what, 96? How old is that kid now? He's got to be in his 50s.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
No, he's probably younger than me because I'm 41 and he was a kid when he did that.
Yeah, that's really true.
Man.
So yeah, it's interesting. I'll definitely root for the Orioles. We'll definitely talk about them, especially when we get Tim back on the show. But I wanted to give them a bit of a shout out. I am going to switch gears real fast. I know that we've got our hockey roundtable on the line already. Let me clear the board here, and then we're going to do a little bit of DC United talk. The DC United got to a draw in their last game on September the 30th. It was a draw 2-2 against the Vancouver Whitecaps. They needed all the points that they can get. They really needed to win, but that puts them in a tie with Montreal at 37 points in the standings, but they've played one more game than Montreal. So it'll be interesting to see. Montreal has some big games coming up in their schedule. They play the Houston Dynamo, the Portland Timbers, and the Columbus Crew. So they have 3 games remaining, and DC United just has 2 games remaining in theirs. So that will be against at Austin, and then New York City FC as the last game at home on October the 7th. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. They're right in the mix. Again, they got to get the 9th seed. It'll be the 8th, 9 to play each other in a play-in, kind of like the baseball wild card we were just talking about. And they're only 1 point out of 8th spot. So and they could even jump up to that if they win both of them, and especially because New York FC is one of those teams that they're playing that last game of the season, and they're the one in the 8th seed currently. So with some luck with Montreal losing and beating and winning their last 2 games, they still have a chance to get all the way up to the 8th seed. So we'll be monitoring that for sure. Again, the next game is this Wednesday, October 4th, in Austin at 8:30 p.m. So we will be talking about that game next week for sure. And then
DC United, they need to get their act together. They can't go with no more ties. They because according to the table, even though they have one more game over CF Montreal currently sits as 9 and in the play-in, and DC is out of it. So they need Montreal to lose this next upcoming game against Houston Dynamo FC, and they need to win against Austin FC. Forget a tie. No ties, none of that crap. They need a win to give themselves some space, because when they play New York on the 7th, Montreal plays Portland. If they can get another win over New York, that gives them enough breathing room to get into the play-in, and then Montreal has to sweat it out in that last game, which they play on the 18th, or not the 18th. They play on the I think it's the 21st. Yeah, they play on the 21st against the Columbus Crew. So that's going to be that's 2 weeks that they got to sweat out. And so what DC needs to realize and recognize, they got to win out. That way they give themselves enough space that they used to be sitting around for 2 weeks waiting to see if they're going to be in a play-in game or if they're going to be out. But They have to win. No ties. They can't be doing this tie crap, and they can't afford a loss. They need to win out if they want to have even a big time, even any kind of a chance to stay in the play-in game at either 8 or 9. That's it. That's all. There's nothing else to it. No more ties, no losses. They have to win out, period.
Yeah. I I totally agree. And what would be good is if we could jump over New York FC, then they'll have to sweat it out, like, the 2 weeks, and we'll be in that, either 8th or 9th spot. So that should be our goal, is to try to jump them. And then that way the 2 weeks are not so brutal. So we have a lot to break down next week, obviously. And so, well, actually, is both of those games, so both of them are before our next show, so we'll know exactly what happened in both of those games. So
Yeah, that's correct. And
yeah.
they haven't had a win since July 28th, according to Google. So yeah, get some wins.
Wait, DC United, they beat Chicago Fire on September 2nd.
Okay, yeah, it's only one win, I guess, since
yeah, but they have 4 draws and a loss, which, it's better than losses, but you're only gaining 1 point with a draw. So a lot of those games were obviously a goal away from getting 3 points and making the table very different. So but we'll follow both of those a lot more later. Arun, thank you for joining us and being a part of it. Anything you want to quickly shout out before we let you go?
No, not really. No RG3 facts. Just want to say Gilberinas, he made second team All NBA, not John Wall. So Gilberinas better than John Wall.
I love that. All right. Well, thank you for being a part of the show as always. And we will definitely talk to you next week.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
All right. With that, Champ, let people know what's on the No Spots podcast this week.
This week on No Spots, so hopefully I'll be back, healed up from COVID, and we will be back to talk about Wrestle Dream as well as No Mercy as well, and then we will be previewing this Saturday's upcoming Fastlane Premium Live event for WWE. So we got a lot to talk about. We will be streaming it live Friday on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/True No Spots Pod, and the audio will go up on Spotify as well as Amazon Music. So make sure you tune into that. And one last thing, because the Wizards are around the corner, and our best center fell down, got injured in a pickup game, is going to miss 2 weeks. You can't sit here and tell me my Wizards are not snake bit, that our best center got hurt in a freaking pickup game in the offseason. Anyway, that's all from me. Thank you for having me. No Kigenyo, sayonara.
Thank you, Champ. I appreciate it. One little quick football update. A really bad face mask call, but I mean, it was the right call, but a very blatant face mask in the Seattle game. Set it up the Giants in a really good position. Mac Jones did try to just run for his life there and basically made 2 yards. So it'll be interesting to see. They're on Seattle's side of the field, but it's the same score that we've been talking about, 14-3 still, 5:23 left in the third, and we'll give scoring updates throughout this next segment. But Champ, thank you for joining us and being a part of it. Thank you everyone for being a part of this great show tonight.